Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another week of Wednesday Hangs Online. I've got Grant with me again. Grant, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Excited to get to be here, and we're going to have a lot of fun this week.
Man, so before we started recording, we had this very lively discussion about school subjects and things like that. I admitted that I loved math, and you said that that's not really how you rolled. So, what was your favorite subject in either high school, middle school, college, whatever you want it to be? What was your favorite?
Yeah, so for those of you that are in school right now, I do not envy you. School was not the thing that I just got life in doing, but there is an end to the education.
True.
But in school, it definitely was English and reading.
Okay.
I loved being able to read and then being able to write papers because I could really just write about my own story, own interpretation of the story. And so it allowed me to have way more room to give answers than just like A, B, or C, and that's it.
Right.
So
you're much more of a paper over a test kind of guy?
Absolutely. All day long. That's why I am doing what I do. I'm doing what I do, and I've studied what I studied. It's because all biblical studies majors, you just write papers. I was told in college that I was done with math after high school, and that was a glorious day for me. I'm not going to lie.
That's fair. I think I resonate in that, but I love math, so it's
fair enough.
It's weird. So, anyways, if you're new here, First off, thanks for being here. We love the fact that you have taken the time to spend some time with us on this night or day or whenever you're watching. And so you can text NEW to the number on the screen, and we'll get connected with you and get some stuff out to you to just help you as you grow and hopefully as you bring people in to watch with you. So as you can see on the screen, we're going through cover to cover, and we've been walking through this series for a while now, and it's been really awesome just getting to see who's the hero in all of these Old Testament stories as we try and capture this grand narrative, this big story throughout the Bible and how they connect. And so tonight we're going to be in Daniel, and so we're going to see that the big idea is living in the world, but not of it. We're going to see Daniel and his friends take a stand against what they're being told to do. And we see that Daniel and three of his friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're given those names by the Babylonians who capture them, take them out of their homes, and then bring them in to kind of become servants for the king, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So, and I bet what Alec was saying, that if you've grown up in the church, you've grown up reading Bible stories, when he says Daniel, you think lion's den.
Yeah.
When you say Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you think another in the fire and the fiery furnace. We're actually not talking about either of those, which excites me because I think that if you're talking through a book of the Bible and you're working through the stories of the Bible, what we've tried to do intentionally throughout this series is for you to go at any point in the Bible. You should be able to look at a story, look at a character, and be able to find where Christ is there, where he is being pointed to, and you can see all kinds of things that are pointed to in the New Testament and find how God is working out this grand narrative and this story that's kind of being played each chapter, each person, each context. And that's what we're seeing here. So we're actually going to be in Daniel 1. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are really going through their first ever test with Daniel. They've been taken over by the Babylonians. Israel is kind of under control right now. And so Daniel is actually sitting in a moment where they've kind of been conquered. There's this secular king that is wicked, and he is now plucking them from their homes, and he's basically said, hey, my servants, I want you to go get Daniel and these people, and I want to bring them in, and I want to sit them at the table. They don't have an option. And so what we're going to be talking about in the story that we're going to be looking into is really that moment when Daniel goes, I've now been just overcome by this ruler, our entire group of people that I'm supposed to be putting faith in God to believe that he's the ruler over all. But now this king named King Nebuchadnezzar is calling me to his table, and I could really die at any moment because I'm not a part of his kingdom. I was overtaken, which already puts him at a deficit. And so all of his friends are sitting around this table in this moment going, if I say the wrong thing, if I do the wrong thing, I could be killed.
And so what the table that Grant's talking about, Daniel and his friends are sitting at the table and being told, like, hey, eat all of this. What would have been considered to Daniel and his Israelite friends was unclean food because of just different laws that the Lord had put in place for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you kind of give context and details to
that? For those of you that are listening, you would be like, well, why couldn't we eat food? I can eat food now and be a Christian. Right. Absolutely. So there's Old Testament, when God was kind of beginning the purification process of his people, he would put in place laws that would allow them to obey him. And that honestly was to benefit their earthly bodies and also their souls, and kind of navigating through obedience by removing something and allowing it to be replaced with the Lord. And so Daniel's coming to this table and knows good and well that everything around this table he really can't eat. He's not going to be able to do. But to say no is to then go, I am disrespecting the one guy who is in authority overall. Yeah. And so for us to sit here and go, I'm not choosing to just not eat. I'm choosing to disrespect the king. I'm choosing to obey the Lord and disrespect the king.
Yeah. And so what we see is they're told to eat this ceremonially unclean food, to drink wine, to do things that they would not have done in their daily life because of their love for the Lord. And so we see in Daniel 1, verses 8 and 9, it says, Daniel determined that he would not defile himself with the king's food or with the wine he drank. So he asked permission from the chief eunuch not to defile himself. God had granted Daniel kindness and compassion from the chief eunuch. And so what we'll end up seeing is that Daniel is given the permission. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are all given permission to not eat the food that they're being instructed to eat. Yeah, which is also this officer, this eunuch's way of like putting his neck on the line, because he even says, I'm scared of the king. Like if y'all come in and are suddenly like not as built or not as like strong as these other guys, that's my life that ends, not yours. Yeah. And so Daniel basically says, just trust us, let us eat these things, and we'll be good to go. And that's where, if you've ever heard of like the Daniel fast, this is where it comes from. Daniel is like choosing to not eat certain things because he knows that this is what the Lord has called him to do, because he has this conviction. Yeah. And so that's our first point, is that conviction is over comfort. Yeah. And what we see is Daniel chooses to not stay comfortable. He chooses to follow his conviction and do something that's really scary. Yeah. He chooses to potentially die for his conviction, because like we've said, he's sitting at the table of the king. Right. And so him saying like, hey, like, I don't want to eat this, I don't feel right eating this, is him basically spitting on the food and saying, no, this is not it for me. Right. And so Grant, like, as we're talking about conviction, there's a ton of definitions about conviction. Yeah. And so what exactly does conviction mean for us as believers? Like, you know, because I hear conviction over comfort, and I'm like, well, I feel a conviction to go get Chick-fil-A. Right. Is that the kind of conviction we're talking about? Or is it a conviction to like leave my home and go do something that the Lord's calling me to do? What does that look like? That's a big word.
That's a great question. I think we can throw around the word a lot and use the word in a lot of different settings and not really know what it means. But what conviction means from a biblical context is we would define it as a Holy Spirit prompting that leads us to obedience. Okay. So it's a Holy Spirit prompting that leads us to obedience. So it doesn't start with me going, I want something, I'm going to call it a conviction and then just do it. It's also, I think, really tied in, and a lot of times we confuse it with the word guilt. And so guilt is actually telling you, after you've done something that you really knew you shouldn't do, you feel this, but it's actually telling you who you are not, and then asking you to do better, where I think conviction actually tells you who you are and who you can be in Christ. And so guilt is not something that I would really walk through of going, man, I feel guilty and I need to act on that. That's really you being regretful and making a decision that you wish you wouldn't have done or wish you wouldn't have made. And it's really going, you missed the mark. You didn't live up to what you said you were going to do or act like you said you were going to act. Right. So then you have this guilt. Yeah. Whereas conviction in this moment, it's way more than just not eating food, like you said. It's actually Daniel in this moment going, am I going to choose to go, the Lord's asked this of me, and right now it could cost me a lot. Yeah. And the comfortable thing would be for me to choose to eat the food, just try to get out alive, because the Lord would want him alive, right? Yeah. But instead, he chooses conviction. He chooses, I'm going to do what the Lord's asked of me and just trust him to take care of the results.
Yeah, for sure. And what we see is that Daniel, he's rewarded. Like they ultimately are stronger and in better shape than the other guys because of this conviction that they followed. Like the Lord rewarded their obedience. Absolutely. But what we see in our second point is that obedience releases control. Because for Daniel to be obedient, to follow the Lord, he has to just go, all right, God, like, you have given me this conviction.
Yep.
I'm going to do it, but now I have no control in this situation because as soon as the words leave his mouth, like, I don't want to eat this, all control over his life is gone.
Right.
Because he has control by being able to eat. He knows he'll live.
Yep.
But when those words come out, he loses control because now his head's on the chopping block.
Yep.
Like, he could be killed at any point for disrespecting, for falling out of line, for not following the rules.
Yep.
But the thing is like, I hear control as, we were talking about math earlier. Like, I like math because that's a very controllable thing. Right. I personally love control.
Right.
I am a control freak. I'll admit it. I like to drive everywhere I go.
Same.
I don't like riding in cars.
Yeah.
But control's not a good thing, is it?
And I would say there's kind of this dual battle between there's freedom and then there's control. Like, you have the freedom to choose, which makes you feel like you have control. And it's not necessarily that as a believer, as a Christian, or in this moment, Daniel's saying, I get rid of all freedom to choose. I don't have the ability to choose. He has every right to choose. Yeah. He could choose something else. Yeah. So he has control to choose, but he could choose his own. And that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about control, is that I'm saying my thoughts, my whatever intelligence, what I think is best is what I should act on. And when you act on that, that's where it's rooted in comfort. It leaves no room for a creator. It leaves no room for dependency on the Lord. It is you in charge of your life, your way, doing it all. And so I think naturally I had that same tendency. I want to control the things that are going on, because when things, especially when they get threatening or they get hard or they get stressful, I lean towards going, all right, I'm going to grab onto it. And as long as I have hold of it. But honestly, control leaves no room for change. And I don't know about you, but every time I've tried to grab control, I realize I have no control of it changing.
Right.
I have so many circumstances around me that could change. Right. I have so many things that could alter a lot of different things. And I realize ultimately we're not actually in control of a lot of things.
Yeah. And for you guys that are listening, if you have something to write down, or if you're watching and you're able to take notes on your phone, I want you to just take a moment and think about something that you really hold on to tightly. Like, what do you kind of white knuckle and hold on to that gives you comfort and ultimately leads you to control your own life? Because that's what we see, is that conviction will lead us to obedience. And then comfort is going to lead us to control of our own life, which we're never meant to have. But I know for me, I like to, one thing that I hold on to really tightly is food. I love food, but I will go to really unhealthy places in all facets of life because I will value food, or what food does to me in a really bad way. And so I can idolize food or weight loss or whatever it may be, because I'm really concerned, and it really comes down to self-image. So I would say, as I process this, as we're talking, self-image is something that I hold on to very tightly.
Right.
And so what is that thing for you?
Yeah, I would ask it this way of going, what's the thing that if you were to remove it from your life, it would stress you out. It would make you so nervous. You would desire it more than anything else. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily something bad.
Yeah.
Because food is not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
And we even see that example, and I think that's why the Lord uses that example, is it's not necessarily that whatever it may be is bad. It's our desire to have it over everything else, or our desire to have control over it is where our heart then starts to change. And that's ultimately what the story is about. It's not about whether he chose to eat or not. It's his heart behind it. It's why he chose to eat.
Right. And so what we see here is Daniel chooses to walk away, and good things happen for Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if you continue on in chapter 2 and the rest of the story, that you'll get to the another in the fire story, and then Daniel in the lion's den, and you'll see where they continue to follow their convictions. But what we see first is this fast and this idea of fasting. And Grant, you hinted at it earlier, and you just straight up said it, fasting is taking something away to replace it with God. And what we are challenging our students that are on campus with us tonight is we're calling them to a fast. And so when you wrote down that one thing that we were just talking about, we want to call you into this moment to fast from that. For me, I know I'm going to choose to fast from food for a day. And then anytime I'm hungry, that's going to be replaced with a moment where I have the thought of I want to eat. I'm then going to take that and turn to God and say, Lord, what needs to come out of me? Or what do I need to grow in? What do you have for me in this moment that I would have spent eating food? Now I'm going to spend it in a moment with you.
Yeah. And I would encourage you, like, similar to the question I had earlier, is inviting you into a moment of fasting. For students, that would have been a new thing for me to know and to learn about. It seems kind of like this far off Old Testament thing. It's very much a thing that Jesus invites us into. Yeah. But I would encourage you, think about the thing that if you were to turn off your phone, you were to shut it down, and you were just to sit, what is the first thing you go to? And if that is anything, and I know that's hard because that's what I had to do, but whatever you go to first, wherever your mind goes to first, is probably going to be where your priority is most. And so thinking about if it's your phone, if it's an app, if it's a person, if it's to check your messages to see if someone texted you, whatever that may be, you may need to take a moment and take evaluation and go, is that distracting me? Have I put that at a higher priority than the Lord? And that would be the thing that you can remove. Yeah. Maybe you haven't written anything down yet and you don't know how to fast. You don't know what this looks like. I would encourage you, whatever your mind runs to whenever you're stopped and you're doing nothing, and if that's above the Lord, then you removing that and replacing it with the Lord in a time in prayer, in reading scripture, in memorization. There's a lot of things. There's not necessarily one cookie cutter way to do it, but those are kind of 3 options. And I would invite you into 10 days starting tomorrow, leading for the next 10 days, fasting from it, removing it, and then replacing it. And it takes discipline to do it, but I can't wait to see all the Lord does with it.
Yeah, no, and the team, our team as well, will be going alongside you. And so if you are sitting there going, I want to be a part of this, or I have more questions, we're here. We want to talk with you. Yeah. Text talk to the number that's on the screen, and we'll get connected with you, and we'll help you through this, because one thing that I want to make sure is, like, one, that you're not fasting alone. Like, we're here with you. But 2, fasting is a joyful thing. Yeah. Jesus makes it very clear to the Pharisees, like, if you're going to fast, do it from a joyful place. Don't be sad. Don't walk around like, when I fast from food, it's not me going up to Grant going, gosh, I'm so hungry because I'm fasting for the Lord. I'm doing this great thing for Jesus. Right. No, it's man, I'm hungry. I don't even know if I would express it. Like, I feel the personal, like, genuine conviction to not express if I am hungry. Yeah. Because that takes away from that, because that's between me and the Lord. This is not a public thing. This is a very private thing. And so text talk to the number on the screen, and we'll get connected with you. Yeah. If you're watching with people or just by yourself, man, we want to see that. Let us know. Take a picture, take a screenshot, tag us on Instagram, LH Students. Let us know. We want to see that. We want to connect with you in that way. If you don't follow us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram at LH Students. We're also on TikTok. We're everywhere. We would just want to connect with you where you are. And so what you'll see on the screen after we get done is some questions for you to think through. If you're watching with a group of people, to talk through. Yep. And they're just questions designed to help you process kind of what we've talked about. So Grant, do you have anything else?
Nothing else.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Grant, thank you for being on. Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.